We are in such eerie waters right now. It is so unknown. It's incredible. And Bitcoin is a decision to make as we evaluate the charts. The structure is there. The soundness and consistency on the charts is there amidst all the chaos. We say that a lot. But in this video, I want to break down targets. I want to talk about, first thing, the acceleration zone, this catapult area for Bitcoin, the setup for Bitcoin to reach this trend line, and what could catapult Bitcoin into this extremely bullish move to the upside, right? A lot of people, believe it or not right now, a lot of people are very bullish with what's going on right now with the federal government, the banking system, and everything that's transpiring right now. I also in this video though, because we analyze all scenarios, we visualize these things. I want to talk about downside, but all of these things, there's technical setups right now that really offer such strong confirmations that we can keep an eye on. So let me dig into all of these things. On your way in, everybody, please hit that subscribe, hit the like. I really appreciate it, and let's just do it. To lay groundwork, this is what's going on. As of today, just in, banks borrowed $300 billion in emergency funds from the Fed in the past week. And to give you an idea of what is actually happening right now, here's this tweet. He says, "What a time to be alive. The Fed is hiking rates, shrinking its balance sheet via quantitative tightening, injecting up to $2 trillion in liquidity via BTFP, which is stealth quantitative easing." So they're saying they're not doing any type of easing, but it's stealth. It's hidden. They are. I mean, that's what this is. Now, all of these things happening at the same time. So it explains why things are so indecisive. A lot of people are like, man, those printers are being turned on. Look at this. This is the picture right there. Printers being turned on. Bitcoin's going to move. They've got that nostalgic vibe from 2020 when they just injected so much money, right? And Bitcoin flew. People have those vibes. But we're in a little bit different time. There's some other things going on here, and it is so unknown. And any analyst, they're gonna have their own little opinions. But at the end of the day, nobody knows what's going to happen next. But that's why I like to step back and we go to the charts and we say, you know what? There's structure, and watch what happens. We're gonna get through the following weeks, the following months. We're gonna enter a bull market eventually, I think, and we're gonna look back at this time and watch the structure that is on the charts. And it's such a roadmap to go through these times so that we can be well prepared. And that's why I do these videos. That's why I do technical analysis. This is how I see everything. So let's just talk about it now, and let's talk about the targets. First things first, I do want to talk about the catapult area, the acceleration zone where Bitcoin makes the move to the trend line and breaks up. But more specifically, not just a technical analysis setup, but what would cause that? Be surprised at the chart that will cause that. We're going to look at it in just a minute. But here's the short-term technical analysis setup. If we look at the hourly, you can see clearly we're consolidating right now at this upper trend line just below it. It's a midterm upper trend line. And you could just see kind of this $25,000 area of resistance, horizontal area of resistance. But check it out. During this consolidation, a swing low to the neckline, a swing low, it's kind of a lower low, back to the neckline, and now just sideways, but still a swing low currently at the neckline. It's an inverse head and shoulder setup. It's a small one, but there's a breakout target to around $26,000. It is the upper trend line. Go back to that daily chart. That's the setup from a technical analysis perspective for Bitcoin to get there. What would actually get it there quickly? What could get it there in the next 12 hours, 24 hours? Let's talk about that, because there is a case where this doesn't happen and Bitcoin falls now, and I want to talk about that. But before we do, what would set this up for Bitcoin to get to that area? And then what happens if it breaks above that area? Check this out. We go over here. This is a US dollar currency index, and there's a few things on this chart that I'm eyeing up very closely right now. Number one, we've defined, and you can see this on the chart, this just upper, or just a rising trend, right? A rising channel. Most recently, this is what has happened. US dollar currency index fell from the upper end of the channel to the downside to the lower trend line and broke below. As is no surprise, we get this perfect pullback to the trend line, and check it out, resistance. So this is a bearish setup for US dollar currency index. And what I notice on top of that is this. We have this fractal right here, which is incredibly similar to the fractal that happened back here. Not only because they look kind of similar, but if we actually look at the momentum oscillator on this chart, check this out. We're in this region where we're coming out of overbought on this US dollar currency index. And the reason I'm talking about this is because if this falls, Bitcoin has a very strong chance to rise. That's kind of how this works. So overbought, falling, consolidation. Well, this is a very similar move that happened back at this last fractal at the upper trend line. Overbought, falls, consolidates, and then falls into oversold. So we haven't had the falls into oversold just yet, but the setup is there. And we have a very similar setup as what happened back here. To illustrate that, we have our bars pattern. We can take that fractal back there to the swing low and just look at it. Such a similar setup. Doesn't look exactly the same, but the setup is there for US dollar currency index to fall. And if this happens, Bitcoin, the setup for Bitcoin on this chart, for those bulls, the people that are bullish, it's ready, right? It's up for grabs. Now, in the short term, if Bitcoin makes a move to the upper trend line, I'm watching for resistance, number one, because this is the be careful environment, meaning we get the move to that area, but Bitcoin could fall. And I want to explore what that looks like. But if this trend line gets broken pretty powerfully on this daily chart, what I'm watching is something I mentioned in a previous video. It's this area up to around $29,000 to $30,000. So this area up here, if Bitcoin explodes through this trend line and we get another breakout for Bitcoin, I'm looking for consolidation up in this area, right? And even a throwback to the actual trend line that it broke out of. So that's what I'd be watching for if Bitcoin just does something crazy where we're waking up in the morning and it's breaking out. But that's upside, right? And that's the setup for it. And I think all things are in play for that to happen. But yet again, is it going to happen, right? How will the stock market open tomorrow? What's US dollar currency index actually going to do on this hourly chart? Because if it doesn't fall, it could be very well making a move to the upside to test this trend line once again, maybe breaking back into this channel. So I'm keeping a very close eye on that chart. Now let's talk about downside, because we are at the 200-week moving average resistance. You see this at this upper trend line, huge confluent resistant area. A lot of resistance for Bitcoin bulls to have to break above. If we look at the daily chart, right? We're looking at the daily chart and we're like, all right, let's actually see the case for the downside now, because it's there. We've had swing high, higher high, now another higher high, all at the upper trend line. Bitcoin's been really hanging out in the upper trend line region. There's room for downside from that case alone. But while those higher highs are happening, what's happening on the RSI chart? Check it out. On the RSI, slower moving momentum oscillator, we have a swing high, we have a lower high, and we have another lower high right now. And so that is bearish divergence. We're getting lower highs on the RSI momentum oscillator while we're getting higher highs on the price chart. Momentum is fading. And so the case for Bitcoin to fall right now is actually quite strong, especially with what is going on. It's incredibly uncertain times. So the reason why we want to monitor this is because not only are we getting the lower highs, but even look at the similarities of consolidation at this region, right? So we're getting the lower high on this chart and the higher high on the Bitcoin price chart. But look at the similarities. Just consolidated, right? It consolidated before falling. It even consolidated back here before falling. Right now we're consolidating. And is it before falling? Now, what I'd be watching for if we do get a big dip is it going to put in a higher low? If it did, because this could start being pretty bullish, right? So for Bitcoin, but that's bullish after the fact of Bitcoin dipping. What does that dip look like? Let's kind of talk about that. We just discussed it in yesterday's video. If you were watching the video, you might be aware we have the shorter term swing low to the swing high resistance. That's very much in play. And it's the retracement back down to 22,200 to right around 21,100. If things are really bad and markets are not liking what's happening right now, I think there's a strong case for that. And next week, FOMC meeting, people are not liking what comes out of that, the news that comes out of that. If Bitcoin's falling big time, I want to show you this setup, and I'm probably going to do an actual just video about this alone. It's the swing low back here in November to swing high, and it's a higher low Fibonacci on the macro. This is where Bitcoin could fall to. I want to explain. This is a 20 to 30% dip for Bitcoin, but if we really start bringing things together now in the story, if it played out this way, I can't tell you how bullish this makes me. It really does, because from a technical analysis perspective, this is a shift from bull to bear to bull, but it's this chart. And I'll be watching this closely because this might not play out this way, depending on how it happens, how quick it happens. But if Bitcoin actually on this daily chart put in some type of, if that fall happened, right, to that big drop, and Bitcoin actually puts in a higher low on the RSI, right? So this would be bullish divergence on this chart while Bitcoin is putting in a lower low on the price. That could be bullish divergence. This could be a huge indicator that Bitcoin is getting ready to pop, maybe even bigger than we've just recently saw. So there might require some patience for that, in which case we'll have to be patient. And the last thing I just want to talk about, because I noticed it on the chart very clearly, is just the fact that we do have this potential setup, right? A left shoulder, a head. If we come to the short-term support and see support, and Bitcoin actually bounces off that area, we have a right shoulder setup. The breakout that the bulls want might be over here in April, right? Maybe even over here and towards the middle of April. So it could just be that we have to wait a little longer. There's volatility to downside. So all of these are speculations, but that's why we're here, everybody. That's why I do these videos. I do this so that I'm mentally prepared. It's how I have to navigate through, because I can't sit here guessing. I can't sit here predicting, because if we're really being true to ourselves, nobody knows what's going to happen. So there's no sense to do that. But what we can do is evaluate the scenarios. And I'm telling you, doing all these technical analysis videos for years on this YouTube channel, it's time and time again, no matter what is going on in the world, when you look back on the charts and these videos, the structure, it maintains, right? And we hit targets. And in the process of hitting those targets, we make better decisions. At least I do, right? Meaning if Bitcoin fell to this area, because we just talked about it, I will be very comfortable accumulating crypto, not Bitcoin per se, but crypto in general, because this is our roadmap. So that's my thought today. Let me know your thoughts, everybody. Hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're not a subscriber. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.